Hey, going bro, you alright?
Hi mate, how you
Really appreciate you taking the time to actually talk to me about it. But basically, the idea is to get like first hand accounts from like guys that are playing or have played really high standard professional rugby, and basically get their thoughts and ideas on, for me, like scrimmaging. Like I think there's like a massive difference in like what you get in like Prem and even like a top
doing?
championship club, in comparison to national leagues and then below.
Yeah,
And I think especially for young guys, it's pretty daunting to they'll watch yourself sort of thing on TV and they go, fucking hell, look at the size of this guy, and they don't really understand that the skills and everything that goes involved and the years of training that you've had.
hmm
It's just about sort of giving like an in-depth sort of look into that a little bit,
yeah, of course.
um, and just talk about sort of your thoughts on scrimmaging, your thoughts on drills.
Yeah, well, I mean, I played from Nat two to Premiership, so I think obviously I've seen quite a few variety of different guys and styles, I would say. But yeah, so hopefully you've got a fairly good.
Right, okay, yeah. Who'd you play for in that too?
I played for Bladen,
Oh, okay,
but
okay.
I think they got relegated last year. Played for them for about half a season, maybe three quarters of a season.
Right, okay, yeah. Was that
But
like a
that
loan deal with
was
Falcons or anything?
Yeah, it was like a dual reg
Right, okay, yeah.
um, thing. Was I probably? I think it was my second year, so it'd have been like 1920.
Okay, cool. Oh,
Um,
fucking
but
hell, yeah.
yeah, which was class. To be fair, I really enjoyed it there.
Okay. I mean, also, how do you find that? Because like, I mean, are you 22 now?
22, yeah,
So like, I
almost
mean,
22.
in terms of props, like I'd say you're pretty young,
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
prop, and to be where you're playing at now is credit to you as a player. Um,
yeah. Definitely young, younger side anyway. I think especially in the Premiership. I think obviously props generally mature a little bit later, just because experience wise, you need if you want to kick on, I think you need as much exposure to scrums at all levels possible, really. And I think a lot of it is just almost getting your chance to be in those sessions or in those games. And once you get in it, it's probably the best way to learn. Just you might get hiding a couple of times, but I think getting that exposure as much as you can is the best way to learn,
yeah,
really.
too right. I think like having those sort of using the errors, they don't define you. They don't make you the player that you are. It's like using them as like they don't define you. They can help make you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I
I think just
think
using lessons as you go forward through rugby.
especially how you react to like certain things as well, how you learn. I think you've got to accept that like scrummaging is a pretty humbling thing. You might think you've got it 1 second, but you're only one scrum away from being a bad scrummager again. But I think the way you take information and how you react to those kind of moments are probably quite key in terms of developing. So I think you're not always gonna have your best day at the office, but how do you react to that, and how do you pick apart the different bits that you might be playing against, and you might struggle against a certain style or certain thing that one prop might do, but how do you learn from that and think, well, if I come up against that again, how am I going to react to it?
Yeah.
What kind of techniques am I going to pull on to try and get me out of that situation?
Oh, okay. Cool. When things don't go to plan at scrum time, and say you do have those times when you do get shoveled, like what's your process from that? Are you waiting for a review, or are you trying to fix it in the game?
I think we probably had it a bit at the weekend, where things we planned for in pre-season didn't probably go our way, and it's how quickly you can react in the game is key. Like if you can react in the moment, that is like such a good skill to have, and maybe just almost as a front row or front five, whatever it may be, just have that 30-second discussion of what are we trying to do here, what are we trying to get, how are we going to stop what's happening to us. But sometimes it's not always possible, and in the heat of the moment, it's not always easy to do that,
Yeah.
and you probably don't necessarily have the right message at the time. So if you can do that, that's great. But a lot of times your learnings are probably coming off the back of it. So whether it's watching footage back or from coaches giving you little bits of information of what they're seeing, because see what you feel is not always what you're seeing. So
Yeah.
having people watching or watching videos back,
You sort of got to put
massive.
those two together. Like you got to have that outside eyes looking on you, and also what you're feeling.
Exactly.
I think almost like what you're feeling is more important, to be fair, because like you can, but then again, it could be you're feeling this pressure coming from one
Yeah.
side, but then you're not actually seeing why or how that's coming across. And it's
Yeah,
just
and
having those
ultimately,
two together, which would be decent.
yeah, exactly. I think what you feel is not necessarily always what you see, and you want to almost, you might have certain feelings that you want to almost chase in the games. If, for example, if you feel like feel really short, but you actually don't look it, you're probably all right. You almost probably want to chase that feeling of being a little bit short with your feet underneath you, because ultimately the pictures that you paint in the scrum are what decides if scrums go down or referees start getting involved in the game. Then it's the picture that they see is what's important. It's not necessarily just what you feel. So you almost want to try and paint the best picture to the referee, as well as
Right.
yeah, it's just the coach and tips, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think it's important, like mentioning the referees. Like I think they've got a pretty tough job at scrum time, just in terms of knowing what happens, what a tight head trying to do to a loose head, what a loose head's trying to do, and they got to make a split second decision really quick. And obviously, it's about painting the pictures for them, and then probably understanding what pictures they're seeing. So I think having those, again, it's difficult to find the time to have a discussion with a referee in a game. But it might be more of a case of what pitches, what can I do better, what do I need to do to get a reward, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like 100%. Like I think if you can have those, there's always those little bit breaks in play. If you're around the referee, just ask him the question. I even if everything's going fine, ask him if he's happy. There might be something that he's seeing that's on the edge and just might click you in a nose. If he's thinking that you're not quite square, just make sure you keep square. Then I think it's a good conversation to have. Not only just opens a dialogue between you two, it just creates that bit of relationship. And I think across all levels, across levels of the game, you often get the same referee a few times in a season. So if you can just open that relationship, they'll remember the conversation. They'll know what you're about, and you always have those conversations before the game. So if you have a referee multiple times across the season, can you just open that conversation before the game's even happened?
Yeah.
And maybe reference a game that he's refereed in the past if you remember it, and just say, "Oh, were you happy against whoever you're playing 6 weeks ago, however long ago it was," and just open that relationship up again. And just if you can just keep building those relationships, the refs are often they're not going to make those split second decisions. So if they see something, they might think we've had the dialogue, and they might let something go, and then they'll open the conversation the next time before the next film. Might say, "Oh, I thought you were a little bit, well, you weren't quite square there, but just so you know, that's what I'm thinking."
Yeah.
And then to almost put you back into check and think, right, let's square back up, or whatever it may be.
Oh, too right. Number one, what's your best piece of advice you've been given in terms of scrimmaging?
I think probably it's more just a case of trying to get as many reps as possible. Like don't ever shy away because you think you might get done against a tight head or a loose head, whatever side it may be, because those are your best learning moments.
Yeah.
Like when you are on the back foot, it's all well and good when you've got your opposite number under the pressure, but you're not necessarily always learning a huge amount. Where if you come off a game and you've had a tough day, often those are your best learning moments, and those are the moments that are gonna make you as a player. It's not necessarily those great moments.
I think for me, like my biggest lessons have been like, especially when I was younger, it was come against like an old prop, and you just end up being like, well, shit. But like for me, like I played a lot of rugby in New Zealand at the start of like my career, and like my first men's game was against someone who's had him having his like 300th game, senior game, and I was just like, and you get up for it and stuff, but like he was a bit old school though, so he was like filling me in, and he's like, in 5 minutes, like you get the next one.
But that's what it's all about, especially like when I said before, when I was playing at Blaine, we were in National 2 at the time, and like those are the props you come against who you learn so much off, because a lot of the time they've played, as you say, 300 plus games for their club, and they've been playing for years, and the amount of experience and number of games they've played in
Yeah.
is you're nowhere near it as a young prop at the time. So like just feeling those different, what they're trying to do, and those little bits. And if you can, like, have conversations after the game, like generally a lot of them are top blokes, and you'll meet them after the game in the bar for a beer or whatever it is, and open the conversation. Just speak, like, learn as much as you can off those guys. That what were they feeling, what were they thinking I was trying to do, and or what were they like thinking about coming to the game, potentially coming up against me, or all those different kind of things will help you in the future. But kind of comes back to that, like, thing of just keep opening up the conversation and have as many conversations as you can. And you're not necessarily going to use all the bits of feedback you get, but like take a couple bits from each person you meet, and all of a sudden you've got this fountain of information about what people perceive you as, and that can only really put you in a good place.
Well, true, right. And I think that comes down to like mentality of how you take errors, how you take performance and stuff, and obviously just general mentality of how you approach the game and life a little bit. Like if you have a bad game and you're like all like sulky and within yourself, it takes quite a lot to get out of that. If you just start sapping all the time, and I think if you have that right, let's have a clear analysis. Where have I gone wrong? What can I do to get better? And like having those conversations they're invaluable, to be fair. So yeah, cool. Again, a lot of people don't want to have those conversations, I think.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think you've got to learn pretty quickly, and sometimes it is a pretty, if you've had a really good time through the age groups and through school or club, whatever, and you've always been on top, it can become pretty difficult early on. It's a pretty rude awakening in terms of those challenges you come across, and you're going to get some pretty harsh criticism or feedback. But like, as you say, it's how you take those bits of information on board and use them, rather than just trying to go defensive mode. Because you see it sometimes. You get feedback and you're straight on the back foot and you try and defend yourself, but a lot of the time they're not giving you. You're getting this feedback for a reason. It's not that they don't think you're a good player, or they think this and that about you. It's ultimately because they probably want to make you a better player, and they're just trying to help you and see how you react to those different bits of feedback.
Yeah, I think especially in like professional rugby setups, like you have to get humble. You get humbled really quickly, I think, and I think you have to be humble. I think the guys who are like really humble, I think you don't get picked for a game one week and it's not necessarily like you can have a little sap. Everyone's allowed to have a little sap. Nobody doesn't want to play, but then it's how you react after that that's going to be like more testament to who you're going to be as a player and how you're going to get on. But I've always found like in the changing room sheds, like the people that don't play have a little sap, but they still do the job for the team. They're like the most well liked people in the team.
I think there's a lot of boys who often don't play in the change, but often make the change room because they are the heart and soul of the club or wherever it may be, and they kind of lead the energy in those sessions, because those are the kind of boys who could easily bring it down. But you've got so much respect for the boys who turn out every session, no matter what situation they're in, whether they've had a bad week or whatever it may be. There's definitely boys you think about who turn up every week and rip in no matter what, whether it's selection or even outside of rugby, what's going on. You don't really know.
You haven't got a clue. Yeah, and I think the other thing when you come to like professional rugby, when you're getting paid a decent salary and it's your whole life, this is your whole job, this is your profession. At the end of the day, like it's your job to get better, it's your job to perform. And I think there's a big difference in that and then like an amateur level rugby where people will, I'm not playing, I just want to play with my mates, so I'm playing rugby for the fun of it. And I think that can spiral quite quickly. And I think that's sometimes you see that in professional sports. And like for me as a young professional, like I was semi-professional, started playing a little bit, got a taste of it, and then I was like, it's something I want to have a go at, but I had to work as well. So like I'd hear guys after a loss being like, "Oh, I'd rather work on a building site," and I'd be like, "Are you fucking joking? Like, have you ever worked on a building site? 'Cause it's fucking shit."
Yeah.
So it's just having
Yeah.
that again that like mentality of like, this is my job, this is what I got to do. You're gonna have good and bad days, but you got to ultimately build yourself up to perform.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, seeing both sides of it, and you can moan about anything you want at the end of the day, but if you look at the bigger picture of you playing rugby for a living,
How fucking
like
good.
you can't really complain, can you?
No, mate, no, not at all, not at all.
Yeah, take a step back and look at
Yeah, I think that's
football if
very
they're
important. That's a very good message actually. Right, what's your favourite drills, or what's your best drills you think for developing as a scrummager?
I think a lot of things ultimately come down to setup. I think, like, if you've got a good setup and almost a checklist of everything that you go through before every scrum, you've probably won half the battle. I think just getting everything you can control to start with is so key, and then everything else after that will follow. So whether that you might be working with different hookers or second rows, but if you can create a consistent setup where you come in the same every time and getting your however you want to get into that position as quickly as possible, and just repeating that over and over again and getting comfortable in that, then it puts you in a really good place for the bind and the set to get that punch. But I think key for anything is getting that initial setup right, and just keep going over that with
Yeah.
different hookers or who you might be playing with.
And being
getting
comfortable
that
getting those reps and knowing exactly where you want your feet, how much of a lean you want to get. That
Yeah,
sort of stuff's
exactly.
massive. Like for me, with my clients, that's like the first thing I get to them to do is just process. So it's literally they just come down, fold, and for me, I want them to get a good lean, but they need to be in control. They need to be able to
Yeah,
come back from that. Like you can't just
yeah,
lean and put all your weight on.
yeah.
So yeah,
I think even just like like if you work by yourself on a single sled or whatever it may be, just like working on that engagement, just that speed of how quickly can you move. Like Rob Webber, who's coach at Sarries at the minute, is really big on just being really efficient with your feet. So like just getting 1 foot back and going and how quickly can that happen, and then how quickly can you punch back across.
yeah,
And I think I'm really enjoying it at the minute. To be fair, I think it's really clear message of just being quick and controlled. And then, as I said, puts you in the best position for the set.
too right. Yeah, I had Webbs as a coach at Jersey for 2 years, and like I thought
Yeah,
he was class. To be fair, like
yeah,
he was very good at what he was doing. Yeah,
yeah. He settled in really well at Sarries, I think, and I think the message he's getting across is very clear, and everyone as a pack knows exactly what he wants us to deliver.
yeah.
So it's
Well,
pretty.
he don't mince his words, does he? So
No, he doesn't mess around. So
no.
it's you know exactly what to expect.
Too right. Well, yeah, I forgot he was there actually. Fucking class. All right. So we've gone for that. Do you have a favourite scrum that you've been a part of, or like a favourite scrum memory where like you've gone through a pack, or you're getting a penalty, or anything like that?
I think you always have your good days, your bad days. We probably had a good day at playing for Falcons at Quins last year. We got a penalty try there, which was always a good feeling. But I'd say I think like trying not to get too high or too low about around scrums, because as I said before, you can quickly.
Yeah.
You might have the best day in the world one week, but then it all comes crashing down the next.
Or you literally get a scrum. You get a scrum pen, 1 pen. Next next scrum, you get folded. Exactly. You get I think especially at the level you're playing, like you're not getting fucking higher than the prem, or apart from internationals.
International,
I don't think you. I mean, don't mind, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you've ever had a scrum where you've dominated and then you've just dominated and dominated and dominated every scrum.
Yeah.
Usually you'll get a dominant hit, and the next one it'll come back onto you, and you've got to sort of take the pressure, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like such fine margins. in the Premiership in terms of if you 1% off on one scrum or you don't quite get an engagement properly, teams are going to go through you. So you need to be on it every time. And if you're not, you're going to get found out pretty quickly. So as I said before, you don't want to try not to get too high about things when things are going well, and equally on the other side of the coin, try not to get too down when things aren't quite going your way, because ultimately you've probably going to have another chance at the next scrum. So you need to get your head around getting prepared for that next one.
I think you got to find that balance. You got to let them know like you fucked them up.
Yeah.
But do it in a way that you're not going to look a complete twat if it happens the next scrum.
Exactly, because I think like obviously you do have that raw emotion, because there probably isn't many better feelings when you're going forward and you get a penalty and you're on top and it kind of does all come out.
Yeah.
But then it's how that'll happen for however long it is, 30 seconds. But then how do you then bring yourself back down is probably important.
I think for me, like I'll always. I mean, my coach here hates that I do it, but like if I get a scrum pen, like I'll just shout, and then he's just like, "Oh yeah, but we've got to be humble." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I've literally just pushed my ass off for like 10 seconds in like a squat that's gone nowhere, and then all of a sudden it's broke.
It's gone.
I know. I've got to let them know."
I think 100%, because I think a lot of the psychology behind the scrum is such a good opportunity to put one over on the other pack, and you do have to let them know definitely that you've got the upper hand there. And there are days where you will be on the top for a while. When you're on top, you've got to let them know about it definitely, but without going overboard, because I think you can kind of if you get too emotional in it, then you probably can get lost.
Yeah.
But definitely, because enjoy those moments as well, because as I said before, those moments are the ones you're going to remember.
They're few and far between as well. They don't happen every game necessarily, even if you're part of a very good pack, especially at like your level. But yeah, you got to celebrate it.
Yeah, you got to treasure them as well. Like remember those memories, and then try and get your head back on.
Yeah.
And screw back onto the next thing.
I think it always comes down to that for me, like a next job mentality. So like I've got to be sort of like present with what I'm doing at the moment, and then once that's done, it's done, and I'm not worried about it then. Especially playing, I think it's important to like I've been shoveled there. Right, park it. Try and think about what could I do better, or what do I need to do. And then park it, and then it's next phase, because otherwise you just end up lingering over that, and it affects the rest of your game.
Yeah, definitely. I think with both, as I said before, both things, highs and lows, you've got to try and park it. When you're feeling good, obviously confidence will run through you, and it'll happen. Things will happen. But when you make a mistake, whatever, it's always if it's in the scrum or if it's in the open play, but you just got to try and park it as quickly as you can, because it's only going to affect not just you, but the energy you give around you that is so big. Like your actions and your words gives off energy to all your teammates. I think how quickly can you push off that last mistake and get back on there? Yeah,
too right. Well, okay. For me, the connection between loosehead and hookers like massive, and I think in terms of the front row, the connection between loosehead and hookers, the tightest connection in the front row. I think tight heads kind of left a little bit to do more of their own thing. What are your thoughts on the connection between the hookers?
I think obviously, as you say, it probably is the most important connection, because the tight head does often get left to himself to an extent. But I think ultimately you want to be able to stay square. So if you're too tight in with your shoulder or your shoulder tucked, then you're going to do well to stay square. So how can you have your shoulder out but then keep that connection? I think big thing for me would be trying to keep my foot connected to the hooker's foot, so then
that inside foot.
Yeah, my inside foot, just so then my hips ultimately stay with your hooker. Because if you lose your foot, your hips will obviously kick out, and then you're around the corner, and that opens up the seam for that tight head. So how can you keep that foot screwed in the ground right next to your hookers and keep your hips tight, and almost try and just bear everything down to that inside leg, just to really cement back through.
Yeah.
So you almost want to try and pressure all your pressure coming through your right shoulder, but without kicking your hips out, essentially.
So sort of like a right shoulder, right leg mentality, but it's not that. It's just a sort of pressures coming through, just on a slight 1 o'clock.
You're bearing, as you say, bearing towards 1 o'clock without turning. So you're just down and down and down and to your right.
Yeah.
Just bearing through that right shoulder, but without, as I say, kicking around the corner.
Yeah, because as soon as you kick, like that's like you've just opened the door for me as a tight head, and I'm going to attack whatever space is there. So, who's the best scrummager you played against?
Probably say Dan Cole. In my, I think it was like my second game in the Prem, I think.
Get that up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I had. Well, no, sorry. My first start was Wilco Low for Quins.
Yeah. Get that up here as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then the week after was Tigers Away with Coley, and I thought he was really. He did loads of different things. So he'd mess around a bit in terms of on some binds he would load up really heavy and put loads of weight through you and make it really difficult for you. And then the next scrum, he might probably put less through the bind, and then try and catch you on the engagement and just go. And then equally other times he would close the gap on you. So there wasn't much of an engagement, and he would just slowly wait, and they'd have if it was on their ball, they'd have a longer scrum, and wait for us to break. So just giving. Often, I think you come against tight heads who often will do the same thing for a whole game, and you'll often have, so once you had the first couple, you can almost work it out. Whereas I felt was just almost was playing like mind games, just doing all these different things, and so you go in the next scrum, but you never know what was coming.
Yeah.
So it made it really difficult. But as I said, the game before, Wilco Low was tough because he's
very
big
good
man
scrummager
and really good scrummager. And equally, I think Will Collier last year for Quins was a really good scrummager.
Yeah, solid. But both, like all three, I'd say tight heads who would pride themselves on their scrumming ability. That'd be like, in terms of like what are they good at, it would be scrums is up there with what they're good at, and then stuff down below. But yeah, a hell of a learning curve though going into that.
But yeah, definitely. But as I said before at the start, the best learnings you'll get are in those moments. So you might remember the first one, Wilco Low probably got caught in the engagement because just out of probably shot more than anything, and we probably got caught on that first scrum. Then second scrum was like, right, how do we react? And I remember chatting to Mickey Ward, was our forwards coach at Newcastle, and he was like, I watched that first scrum and I thought, oh no, I think Phil could be in for a long day here. And then second scrum managed to bounce back, and we found almost a bit of a groove, and we had an all right day in the end. But yeah, just again, not getting too down on that first one.
Yeah, too
just
right.
Like, can we bounce back and go back at them?
Yeah, too right. I say again, that's testament to like character. Like you could have gone on against some of the best tight heads in the world. I'm going to be in the shit. First scrum goes to shit, or not quite where you want it to be, and then you could easily have a very steady or fast decline. But again, like testament to character and what work you've done. Like, and also like I think you can take confidence from if you get a good hit and it's stable. You're like, well, actually, I hold my own against these guys who have X amount of international caps, and I think you've got to, like I say, take your wins and understand when you've got a win. That's not necessarily a scrum penalty. It's not. You're not gone straight through them, but it's still a win. So yeah, I think that's a cool thing to do as well. Who's the best scrummager you've played with?
I'd probably say Trevor Davison. In that same team at Newcastle.
Okay, yeah.
Had Trevor and Jordan Wigan, who were just like, Griggs was unbelievable scrummager, as so was Trevor, strong as anything. Those two together were probably the best two I could have asked for to play those first couple of games in, because they obviously Trev would kind of just go, and then I could just sit behind George, and would kind of if we get a rumble on, then I can just kind of sit in behind and follow them. And yeah, I've had some tough sessions against Trev. Yeah, I think he's brilliant tight head. But yeah, I'd probably say Trev. But I think you need that balance. As I said, in those first couple of games, I had George and I had Trevor, who would both come through as well. But we're now experienced players, and I leaned on them a lot, especially to start with. And then, as I said, you had Greg Peterson behind you, who was a vastly experienced player who'd been around and almost looked after you a bit.
Yeah.
So I think probably just trying to get that blend right is so important. You obviously want to bring those young guys through, but you need the right people around them to nurture it.
You need the right environment, don't you? Where they can actually give stuff a go. If it doesn't go wrong, it's cool.
Help you out also when you're struggling a bit, and also like give you that feedback, because they've seen it all before. Give you that feedback on what they want from you and how you can do it ultimately.
Too right, yeah. What's your mentality at scrum time? Like, what are you trying to get out of it? Are you wanting to be, really secure and get clean ball for backs for plays? Do you want to be real attacking and get penalties?
I think it all depends. It's kind of dependent situation dependent rather. Sorry, but I think ultimately you've got to be aggressive and you've got to be attacking at every scrum. Otherwise, if you go into a scrum thinking I'm trying to deliver ball here, that's when you're going to get caught. You've got to go at the opposition, otherwise they're coming for you, and you'll
make them work at all times,
and you'll get eaten alive. And and exactly, Webb's talks about whatever it is. If it doesn't matter, you might not always get that massive engagement and blow them out the water on the snap, but can you make them work? How much pressure can you put them under? No matter what it is, how can you pressurize and just ultimately make them work? Because if you've got to back yourself at the end of the day, and that you're going to outwork them, and at the start of the game especially, you're not always going to break them. First scrum, second scrum, third scrum, might not be till 60 minutes in, but if you can keep putting your opposite man under as much pressure as possible, hopefully by the end of it, you've got to buy yourself there. They're going to break. Exactly. And it's not always going to come 5 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
So can you keep just loading up the pressure until it breaks?
Yeah. I think that's something that Webb's really hit home at Jersey, was about, they might not break in the first, and there's no mugs in the Championship, I don't think, either.
Yeah.
And I think even more so in the Prem. And it's not going to be about you getting that hit and just going straight through someone. It's going to be, we're going to hit, we're going to hold, we're going to be low, we're going to sink, we're going to fight for those centimetres. Yeah. And eventually someone's going to lift a foot because they're under pressure. They're going to slightly, take a bit out of their back, and then that's when you've got to capitalise on it. So yeah, I think that's really important. Always making them work is a massive thing.
Yeah.
You touched on it earlier about the importance of the setup. Do you think that's the most important stage of a scrum for you?
It's the one where you can control the most. So I think if you can get that right, then it puts you in a good place.
Too right, yeah.
Ultimately, it's probably the first stage that for you to get right. So if you can get that right, it'll put you in a good position, or hopefully a good place to win the bind, and then ultimately win the set.
Too right.
But I think probably the engagement is probably the biggest part.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you can get that small bit of momentum and catch someone on the engagement and get them going backwards, you're just going to go through. And equally, if you get caught on the wrong side of it, you'll do well to stay in that fight.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, the engagements are pretty neutral. And as you said, then you're just fighting.
Fighting to get down, trying to squeeze, yeah.
Yeah, fighting just to see who breaks. But yeah, I'd probably say the most important probably is the engagement, but ultimately the setup is what leads to that, and how can you get that first stage right?
Yeah, too right. I think that's literally verbatim what I'm trying to teach clients is your process is the important thing because you can control everything you're doing with that.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing for me is the hit. I think if you don't quite get your bind right, you don't quite get your lean, but if you get a really good hit, it can sort of rectify those things. Whereas if you get the binds, really, if obviously for a loose edge, you want to be nice and strong, elbow high, applying pressure on a tight head, and then you don't get a hit, all that's been done for nothing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. Like, what don't you want a tight head to do to you?
Yeah, I mean, probably don't want to tell all the secrets, but I think to an extent, ultimately, how like, I think a lot of times tight heads can take a seam and thinking and chase that almost like fool's gold, and that's when you can almost rip out, but you can get him out of there. I know chatting to conversations with Scotty Bolden, who was at Quins, he said Joe Marler used to almost like let tight heads in the seam because he knew you could get them out of there, and that's when you can get dominant. But often I think tight heads can stay square inside shoulder and almost make it a battle.
Sort of attack you more than going after the hook or the space.
Yeah, almost go back at the loose head a bit or whatever it is. But I think I think taking that fool's goal isn't always there for tight heads.
Yeah, I think also for like on a loose head side of things, if a tight head's constantly going in, for me, if I was a loose head, I would be going in as well because it's the only thing I can do.
Yeah.
Which then lifts the tight head shoulder up, and all of a sudden the tight head's up in the air, and you're happy days.
And I think you've also got as the loose head, you've got the hooker. So you've got a good scrummaging hooker who can deal with that as well. It's going to be it makes life for the tight head a lot harder.
Well, too right, yeah. If the hooker closes off his shoulder, a tight head tries to come in. All of a sudden now he's got no option to go left. He's got you coming in on the right, and he's going to end up in a shitstorm basically. Again, without giving too much away, like what are you trying to do to a tight head at scrum time?
I think probably just as we said, all those get that set up right initially. Then on the bind, trying to get some weight across and almost there's like I think you see it's 3 different battles honestly. On the crouch as you come, can you take the space away from him and cramp him up? And then on the bind again, it's another opportunity to put some weight through and have that another mini battle. And then on the set, just go as hard as you can really on the engagement and get after it, because ultimately if you can win the engagement, that's why that's 90% of it there. And I think especially in the ref's mind, if you can win the engagement and it does go to floor, then I think 9 times out of 10 you probably will get the decision, because
especially if you go straight through the mark.
Yeah,
and take dominant pictures.
If you're not like mega long and bellying out and or hinging the hips massively, if you can win that engagement, get them just going back fractionally, and then it goes to floor, I think you generally get the decision.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think you want scrums off the floor. You want, as is not just obviously we want it as a team because we think we can out scrummage teams, but more just as for rugby as a whole.
As a spectacle, isn't it?
Exactly. You don't want millions of scrums going to deck. So you want scrums off the floor and actually having a battle rather than just going to the floor. So ultimately get the set, good engagement and just go through.
With like a few of my clients, I talk about, especially loose heads, I talk about like battle of the elbow. So having that high elbow so that it's painting the pitch to the referee that if it does go down, it's not your fault. It's not you going down, because I think that's a cue for referees. As soon as they see an elbow touch the floor, it's loose head. No matter if the tight head's lost his feet, dipped, whatever. And then also I think by having that high elbow, you create space to attack the tight head in his chest. So just basically get your thoughts on that, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably something I struggle with slightly because I've got a bit of a crap shoulder, for want of a better word. But I think definitely being able to open up a tight head and get underneath him a bit more, because ultimately where he's trying to keep you out of is massive. And I know people who do it different ways. Whether that's just thinking about trying to turn your binding arm and get your pinky to the sky almost, or I know some people will go almost right round on the back of the tight head to try and almost stop that pressure. But it's definitely a pickup point for the referees. And as we said before, it's all about trying to paint the right picture. And if you're painting a picture of elbow down the floor before the tight heads, then it's another easy out for the referee, because they're looking for little cues like that. So if you can not give him that easy out for when a scrum goes to floor, don't give him it.
Yeah, too right, yeah.
And as I said before, ultimately we still want the scrum on the floor anyway. So can you stop it from even getting there and catch him before that happens? Okay.
Well, what do you want out of the back five?
I think ultimately as much weight as possible and pressure, just constant pressure. Don't let your feet move around too much. Just and scrimmage for the whole scrum. That's the worst thing. I think if you've got a back row comes off early, and then all of a sudden a load of pressure comes back through, is the worst thing. So back five, obviously I know I've got other jobs off the back of a scrum, but ultimately you need to scrummage first.
Yeah, that's your first job. Yeah.
If you can get the buy in the back five to properly scrummage and actually give it everything they've got, it goes a long way, and I think it helps probably a lot more than they realise.
Yeah.
So at the same time, let them know that as well. If you're in a game and you're getting that good pressure, let them know after a game and say you're brilliant, because that ultimately people like encouragement and like the positive feedback. So if you give them it for something they're doing at scrum, chances are they're going to do it again.
Continue doing it, yeah. Yeah, too right. Yeah. I think whenever I've had a scrum where I'm like, you've hit, you've chased your feet, you've sunk. In my head, I'm like, as soon as this ball comes in, I am snapping and I'm going, and that's nothing to do with obviously it's to do with what I'm doing as well. But like the pressure I'm getting from the back five is enormous. I'm like, if I want to go here and I actually start pushing, I guess. Like we're gonna go. So the other thing I like them to do as well is just give energy. I think that's really important, and it's like a whole thing, as a whole team thing. It's something I think, like, watching Sarries the last few years, they do that a lot, and it's all about celebrating, the little victories. Someone gets turnover, the ball gets knocked on, and it's just that sort of just brings energy to people, and I think that's really important for any sort of sport where you're going to get tired, and
can you get excited about it as well? Like, can you bring the excitement to the scrum? Because a lot of the time you will be blowing, you'll be knackered, but if you've got boys behind you bringing the energy, geeing people up, it definitely helps without question, because everyone then dials in, as you say, and scrums first ultimately.
Too right. Fucking scrum first.
Yeah, which makes a world of difference.
And then lastly, what would be your biggest piece of advice for like a young aspiring prop who wants to ultimately turn professional in rugby?
Probably already said it or covered it, but I think how can you take feedback is huge, and take on as much feedback as you can from everyone. It's not just necessarily your coaches. Get feedback from referees, see what they're seeing from players you've played against in the game. Try and catch them in the bar after the game and have a beer and just chat about it and see what he was thinking.
Yeah.
And what he felt. And then if you get some honest, hard feedback, take that as well as you take any other feedback, because that is probably the best feedback you will get. As much as at the time it's probably hard to take, harsh feedback's often the best, and what will ring true when you have those better performances.
Oh, too right, yeah. Also, or you contact scrum first and get some fucking analysis done. But bro, I mean, that's pretty much like all I've got. I don't want to take up any more of your time, really. I fucking really appreciate you taking the time. It means a lot, and just trying to get like good information out to players who want it, basically. So like, there's a lot of messages coming through recently from players who are playing lower levels. They're 18, they're starting to play men's rugby, and they're like, what do I need to do? And it's just, I think having that, I don't think there's the level. I think having someone like Webbs would be fucking incredible for anyone.
Yeah.
But doesn't seem to be a lot of people who are out there like Webbs, like Coach like that. So that's where I want to kind of try and see if I can fill that gap.
I think definitely. I think in the, as we said, even from below Premiership or below Champ, Nat 1, Nat 2, you probably don't get anywhere near the level of knowledge or information or feedback. So just getting those, I think you're dead on. Getting those targeted are it could be massive for people.
But yeah, like I say, fucking massively appreciate your time. It's huge that and testament to character that you give me the time, bro. Okay, awesome. I say, again, thank you very much. I say it means a lot. But yeah, really appreciate it, and all the best for the rest of the season.
Cheers, catch up soon. Hopefully you go well as well.
Oh yeah, well, too right. Yeah, we'll see how we get on, mate. But yeah, have a good one. All the best, bro.
Bye bye.
Right, bye.